I think it's good. Okay. So Coach Thompkins, first of all, thank you for being on here.
Of
And
course.
as I said, I'm gonna do a little bit different intro than what I normally do. Normally I just kind of talk about how we know each other, which we don't, other than the fact that we know Javi.
We do
And
now.
for those that don't know, Javier Salas was my GA at Fairmont. And then he ended up going to Baylor, doing an externship. And then now he's the soccer string coach, women's soccer string coach at Baylor. So I kind of reached out to him and was obviously interested in hear what you had to say working with your A&T athletes. And he said that he thought you'd be interested, so reached out, and here we are. So I'm excited for it. The background that I want to give, what's different about the intro is, and I was telling you about this off air before we started. We're kind of both in a really cool like situation where you essentially are working with the best A&T program in the country, 11-time national champs. I think you've been a part of what, 3 of those, correct?
For now.
4 now. So,
4.
and then I'm fortunate enough to be able to work with essentially what I would consider the best Division II, probably not even really close program in the country. Again, the way I look at it is we won the Division II national championship last year because we were the only D2 school still alive when it got down to the last 4.
Making it.
And I also because again, I do a little bit of research on all these podcasts. I went through and I went since I've been at Fairmont, so 5.5 years now. I went back and I looked at winning percentages across A&T, and obviously for Baylor, I don't think you guys have lost in 5 years since I've been a part. Maybe 1 loss in 5 years.
There was a loss before I got here, not under my tenure. So
yeah.
I'm not sure.
And Fairmont, actually, we are 45-8, an 85% winning percentage, which is the next closest team of like the top kind of teams is Quinnipiac, and they're 77%. So I think
awesome.
the reason I'm starting off with that is I know a lot of my athletes are going to hopefully watch this, and hopefully some of your athletes will watch it as well. And I think it's something that we need to, number one, just give them the respect that they're credited, our coaching staffs and our athletes, because they make my life so much easier. I'm assuming they make your life so much easier.
They do. They do.
I mean, they're literally, I'm not allowed to say they're my favorite team because I have lots of favorite teams, but they're one of my favorite teams. I can definitely say that to work with.
That added to the list. They're up to the top.
I just think it's something that's worth pointing out. And obviously the other aspect too is that your head coach, Felicia Mulkey, and our former head coach, senior women's representative, Chrissy Kiefer, were also one of the founding 4 members of this sport. So just for anybody that listens to this has no idea what A&T is, you need to go do a quick Google because it's now an NCAA sport, so it's going to continue to grow. And we're both very fortunate to be in the positions that we are to work with those awesome athletes and awesome coaches in a really cool, badass sport. And I have a daughter, so it's something that I'm thinking like, I don't know what my daughter's going to end up doing. She may play some sport I've never even heard of in 10 years from now, but it's something where like I like the ability to see female athletes kicking ass because I have a future female athlete myself.
There's opportunities.
Exactly.
So it's nice to see.
So with all that being said, like I said, appreciate you being on here. The first question the first question I kind of always ask is just give us a little bit of background about you, kind of just your path to your current role, what your current role is, and then you can either start from the beginning and work towards present, or start from now and work backwards, kind of on what your career path has been.
Okay. Well, I'm currently the Associate Director of Athletics Performance here at Baylor University. I work with the acro team, obviously. I also work with cross country, and I assist with track and field. Coach Roof, who's our director, is the head for track and field, but I just assist him with the lifts. I've been here for about 3.5 years now. Initially, I kind of have an interesting intro into the field. I didn't really want to be a strength and conditioning coach. My undergraduate degrees in biology, I kind of jumped around a little bit. I was like, maybe I'll do physical therapy, maybe I'll do nurse practitioner. I wasn't really sure. But I graduated with a degree in biology. I was going to apply to nursing school in Texas, but I went to undergrad in Kentucky. So we didn't have the same prereqs as they do in Texas. So when I moved to Texas, I had to take a year off, and I was trying to take my Texas government and those kind of courses that they require you to have here. And I was working at a restaurant and just serving, trying to make some money, got to survive. And at my table one day for lunch was Kaz Kazadi and Pat Ivy. And I had no idea who they were at the time. I'm just doing my job, my regular day-to-day, serving them like normal. And they look at me, and I'm walking around, I'm hustling, I got stuff to do. And they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I do? Like, I'm working here at a restaurant. I'm applying to nursing school. They're like, I can tell by the way you walk that like you're an athlete. Like, what do you do? And I told them I wrestled in high school, wrestled in college. Like now I'm just applying to nursing school, just, trying to get things done. And they were like, no, you got to come out and check out SMU because Cos was at SMU at the time. So they invited me out to like go check out one of their training sessions. And this was during the summer. So I think they were just finishing up before they like came back for camp. This was probably on like a Friday. I showed up to Monday morning at like 5:30 a.m. to go watch one of their football lifts. And they invited me back the next day to watch again. I went back again, and then it was over with from there. I started interning at SMU. I was there for about a year, and then I went and did my GA at the University of West Florida under Cam Morgan. Got to work with a bunch of different teams there. We all assisted with football as we were doing our GAs, but then we also had our individual teams. So I worked with men's and women's tennis, men's and women's cross country, volleyball, women's basketball, a little bit of swim and dive, a little bit of men's soccer, just you name it. I probably worked with that team. So I did my 2 years there. And I went on to get my first full-time position at UAB in Birmingham, Alabama under Stacey Torman. I worked with women's soccer and softball there. Unfortunately, I was only there for about a semester before I got the call to come to Baylor. And I started here in the spring of 2023. So that's how I made it all the way here.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And honestly, I didn't know and we were just literally just talking about Pat Ivy. So I did not know about that with the UB, them being at SMU and all that. Cause Kaz he was at TCU for a while too, correct? I think.
Yeah, so he was at TCU after SMU. So I was there. I caught him right before he was at TCU. And Pat was just happened to be in town visiting. So he was just like hanging out. They were all going to get lunch. He was at Louisville still at the time. It was just a happy coincidence, really.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where I think that's part of what I like about these interviews and getting to know people, like getting to know other strength coaches is like everybody has like a completely different path, not only into the profession, but then throughout their career. To where like, and I was in a very similar situation where like I didn't even know being a strength coach was a job because I grew up in a small town.
Me either. So, like at my undergrad, we didn't have strength coaches. Like,
so it's one of those things where I'm lucky that one of my professors literally just pulled me aside one day and was like, hey, like you should think about doing this. And I had no idea what it was. So like my first intro was I went home and watched like YouTube videos of like college football strength coaches. And that was kind of, I was like, oh shit, this is like, this is exactly what I want to do. Yeah, this is awesome. You mentioned West Florida, which I think they're actually going up to D1 now, but
they are now,
when you were there, they were obviously a pretty prominent Division II program, at least in football, and I'm sure I know baseball, across some other sports. Yeah. Is there anything because obviously again, D2 person here, so D2 strength coach, so obviously kind of that mentality of doing more with less. We're always understaffed and way too many athletes to try to fit into the time and the space that we have. What was maybe a few of the things or one big thing that you feel like you took away from being a GA at that Division II level that help prepare you for now being at the Division I level?
We had a lot of great resources there. So I mean, we had 2 weight rooms. We had pretty much every piece of equipment we needed. So it wasn't really like we didn't have what we needed. I think the thing that was lacking is like the additional support staff. So like we didn't have, a dietitian. We don't have the sports psych. We don't have any of those additional things that we have now. So I think I've just learned to really, I guess in that piece when we didn't have it, just to kind of be that person and give them the knowledge that I could that, wasn't going far beyond my scope. But now being able to utilize those people, you see how important it is when you're the person doing every single thing. So now I just like really try to take advantage of these other people that I have access to here, which it's great to have additional people for sure. Yeah. But we had everything we needed over there, really.
And I mean, to be honest with you, like I'll say that for the most part, we have everything that we need at Fairmont. It's just we just need more people. More. Honestly, we need more. I need more than 24 hours in a day is what I need. That's really
well, I mean, maybe if you had like some more people, you wouldn't need more hours in the day, right?
Well, honestly, it's that, but and our coaches would probably say the same thing because we have one court. We have 2 basketball programs, volleyball and A&T all need to practice on that same court. We have 1 turf field, so we have all of our outdoor sports all need to practice on that same field. So it's not even necessarily like it's more of the logistical issue that deal with and getting everybody in and getting everybody the time that they deserve. And that's 2 things that I'll probably come back to for sure is working with those other additional, sports performance departments, like the nutrition, the training staff, sports psych and all that. I'll definitely come back to that. But the other aspect of it is just the ability to be with your athletes more often. Like that's something that like I personally like just don't get to spend as much time, whether it's at practice, whether it's at competitions, or just in general with our athletes. Like most of our athletes are probably only going to be in the weight room at most. Football's probably spends the most, and they're still only in the weight room probably 4 hours a week in the spring. Whereas like, some of our in the fall, they're only in there 45-minute sessions. A&T is only in there for 2-hour long sessions in the fall, and maybe a 30-minute session on a Friday. So it's one of those things where we're limited by time more than we are resources, which, it's still a good problem to have. Like I would definitely still, something I'm not complaining. It's just reality. But anyway, two things that you said, and like I said, I'll come back to the additional staff and support staff and all that. But you mentioned about being a wrestler, and obviously I read that in your bio, and that's something that I'm very much like. I tell everybody that I can that wrestling literally partly made me who I am, and I'm so appreciative that I found wrestling at some point in my life, and still love being around wrestling, love the sport. What was your like how long did you wrestle for? How did that impact you as a student athlete? How did it impact you as a person now? Like what kind of things do you still like hold on to that wrestling taught you?
I started wrestling my freshman year of high school, so I wasn't like a lifelong wrestler. I started in high school. My older brother wrestled. He's a year older than me, and he wrestled. And he's like, "Hey, you should try out for the team." And I know I didn't want to play basketball because I'm not very good at basketball, and I wanted a third sport. So I'm like, you know what, I'll do it. And I just happened to be pretty good at it. So I wrestled all through high school, wrestled all 4 years in college. And what do they say? Like, once you've wrestled, everything else in life is easy. And like, they mean it. It's true. Like, I know it sounds a little cliche, but it's a tough sport. Like, it was not easy. Every single day we're in there grinding, like absolutely grinding. But it teaches you discipline, like not only just to be at practice and to be an athlete, but to make weight, to do all the additional things you need to do to make sure that you're ready to go for your sport. And I think it just gives you kind of like a bigger capacity to get shit done. Really, I feel like I just can do so many things. Like some people are like a little bit more limited in the things that they're able to do, and they just kind of get a little bit more overwhelmed. And I just don't feel like I'm that way. I'm like, oh, just give me some more to do. Like I can do it. I got it. And I think the aspect that you're kind of like the only one out there on the mat, you don't have like, yes, you have a team, and like, if you're dueling, like your teammates are important, but when you're out there wrestling, it's only you. So you have to be able to like really dig deep and be confident in yourself, or else you're not going to win any matches. So I think that applies to life in general. And I just kind of take my whole life and all my lessons I've learned and just kind of apply it day to day. Like obviously I don't wrestle anymore. I don't really do any combat sports or anything of that anymore, but I just think those lessons just stick with you for life, really. Yeah. And it's hard. It was tough. Yeah. But no, it's totally worth it. And it is enjoyable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I wasn't good enough. I didn't start wrestling till my freshman year of high school either. And I wasn't good enough to go wrestle in college. But even just having wrestled in high school, like I think the biggest thing for me was it was an ego check, because just being a football player and I was pretty good football player, good basketball player, good baseball player. That first wrestling practice, I felt like I had no business being around those people that I thought that, I might have weighed more than them. And like, you just get your butt kicked for like that first year, and you're just literally just getting your butt kicked. And, I think it teaches you that, just like overcoming that adversity. And I think the other thing is it teaches you like small wins. Like I still to this day, like remember that feeling when I took down like the best guy on our team for the first time ever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and that's like 1,000, getting taken down 1,000 times by him versus me taking him down one time. You know what I mean? But that's what wrestling, like, that's like how wrestling is though. It's like, you remember that one time, you forget about the 1,000 times you got your butt kicked. You remember the one time.
Remember that.
Yeah. So I think it's that's something that, again, as a strength coach, like I don't think I would be a strength coach if it wasn't for that professor. But even more personality wise, I don't think I'd be who I am if it wasn't for wrestling.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you as well. I don't
so shout out to wrestling, I guess. Shout out to Dan Gable. That was a Dan Gable quote that you said. So no, I think it's awesome. I think it's and actually, so Fairmont's actually adding women's wrestling this year.
I saw that
as a varsity sport.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
we actually have a girl on the A&T team that was a pretty good high school wrestler, maybe really good. I think she actually maybe took second or third or something, place in states for sure. So there's definitely going to be maybe some interesting conversations about whether she's going to be allowed to wrestle this fall and do A&T.
That would be cool.
Or not. But it's one of those where like you just, and I will say this too, I feel it's the same way to an extent about the gymnastics background. Like there's just a different mindset. And it doesn't even matter if it's like we have girls on the soccer team, girls on the basketball team that did gymnastics, and they almost have that similar mentality as what a wrestler does. And I think it goes back to the culture that's around it, good or bad. I think both wrestling and gymnastics probably have some negative things in their culture. But it does basically like it's, you know, you're getting chiseled mentally and physically every single day by those sports.
And it teaches you how to work hard, because you don't have any other, like, you're not going to be successful if you don't work hard. You're going to get kicked out of the room if you don't work hard. So
it's funny you say that, because like I'm sitting here thinking like the easiest wrestling practice and the easiest gymnastics practice are probably still harder than almost any other like hard practice at any other sport. Like that's the crazy
and
thing.
People have no idea. They really don't know.
Yeah. Speaking of that, then, like when you got hired at Baylor, because like when I got hired at Fairmont, I knew nothing about A&T. I don't even know if I had even heard of what it was. When you got hired at Baylor, even before you got hired, when you were interviewing for the position, what did you know about A&T? What did you like? What were some of the things that like you kind of had maybe preconceived like assumptions about it, and what were some things maybe like right out of the gate, like in good or bad, that kind of like smacked you in the face of like, oh, like I have to change my approach to this, or I have to adjust to this, or, oh, actually these girls are completely badass. Like I don't have to maybe worry about this as much. I don't have to worry about people showing, like that's something like we don't really have to worry about our girls showing up on time. Like they're going to show up early. So, it's what were some of those things maybe that you felt were maybe a learning curve that you had to deal with, and maybe things that you were like, oh, this is like a blessing that I don't have to worry about?
Yeah, so I'd never heard of acro. I didn't even know it was a sport, to be honest, until I like got the call to come here, and I was trying to, you know, prep for the interview and write a sample program. I'm like, I have a lot of research to do, because I just don't know anything about the sport. And there's not a whole lot out there either, right? Because it's a little bit on the newer side. There's not a whole lot to just go where you could go find something about football super easily. You kind of have to dig into like what other sports these ladies come from before they're into acro. But I have it easy over here. I can't lie. The Coach B does an awesome job at making sure that these ladies are disciplined and they work hard. And I don't have to sit here and beg them to work or beg them to be on time. I don't even have to take attendance, because I know they're going to be here every single day. Like it's quite literally never been an issue. And I think with a lot of other teams, you're worried about, you know, athletes getting here, you're having to take attendance, you're having to report back to the coaches. This person was late. This person didn't show up. This person's half-assing it in the weight room, and I just never have those problems. So I'm incredibly blessed to work with this team and to work with this coaching staff, because they set the standard for that, truly. But it was just a lot of learning the sport and going to practice and seeing what it looks like and seeing what they do. And I mean, an athlete's an athlete, right? You're gonna do a lot of similar stuff across many different sports. It's just kind of like, how do I tweak those things to make it fit into this sport or into acro? And it's the piece where there's, you know, your bases, your tumblers, your mids, the utilities who do it all, trying to balance that, because it's kind of like two sports in one. It's like football, different positions kind of deal. So I think that was a little bit challenging as well, but just a lot of research and a lot of going to practice, a lot of chatting with the coaches. The strength coach before me here did an awesome job at programming and learning the sport really well. So when I came in, I had a solid base to work from. I had some good resources to look back at. So I kind of had it easy. But it's just learning the sport.
Right. And that's that was going to be one of my kind of questions, I guess, and you kind of started to answer that already. But I was going to ask before that. So when you stepped in, I mean, how much, like, from what the previous strength coach, what they kind of left you in the sense of, like, I'm sure like technique was already great, like you said, buy-in, culture, all that was great. How much was there from a like, hey, you know, they're doing A, B, and C exercise, and I want them doing X, Y, and Z because I think it's better? Or was it pretty much, hey, like you're just going to gradually kind of see how, here's what they used to do, here's what maybe the little wrinkles that I think I could throw in, versus no, we're scrapping all that old stuff and we're starting over. Which again, I know what you said, like there's only so many ways you can squat, there's only so many ways you can deadlift, so it is what it is. But how much of that was you coming in day one and like wanting to put your mark on it, or were you more like, hey, this is already a great program, they're already in a good position, I need to just maybe monitor what's going on and find where we maybe have some limitations and some weaknesses? Like, was it more of that, or was it more of like overhauling the whole thing?
No, I definitely did not overhaul. So I really think anytime you come into a new spot, you probably should just blow the whole thing up, truly, because these athletes have been doing these things, and you don't want to just come in and entirely blow up the whole program. So when I first got in, it was already kind of programmed out for like a few phases of the semester. And I kept it with that. I kept exactly what they were doing. He did a really good job at programming, so I don't think there was anything that was like a huge red flag, or they weren't, their technique was bad. Like they were a great team. They looked great. So I mean, I kind of had it easy coming in because they had a really good base, a really good background. They had a really good strength coach before I was here. Um, so it's just like taking what he did and adjusting it as I have gone through the seasons and have seen different things, and just making small tweaks here and there of like, maybe we're lacking in this department, what can I do to change that? We need to be a little bit better at this, what can I do to change that? So I've made just small kind of changes as I've gone throughout. And I mean, even now my programs stay pretty similar like year to year. I'm not trying to change something up entirely. Like if it's working, it's working. I'm not going to go blow everything up, but it's just those small changes that I make just to make sure that we're staying on top and we're still the best in the country, truly.
Yeah. No, I mean that, that's another thing too is, and I think there's just like a quote. I don't know who it's from. I can't remember, but it's like, there's a quote of like, it's hard to get to the top, but it's harder to stay there.
Yeah.
And again, I
You
think that
got
goes
a
back.
target on your back.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what I said at the beginning. I mean, you guys are obviously have the ultimate target on your back. But I do think, and again, this is giving credit to our program at Fairmont. Like I think at least regionally, and because we are in a conference, like people are really like coming for us, and like it's
Yeah,
one of those things where
absolutely.
our girls are gonna see their opponent's best, and your girls are definitely gonna see their opponent's best. And I think it just right,
Hmm.
like it's really just keeping us keeping our girls at the highest level that they can possibly be at our
Yep.
divisions. Um,
Yeah.
so sorry, my cat loves to be able to come in here and hop on these podcasts, it seems like, or at least try to. Anyway, so you mentioned like the tops and bases, and that's something that I do make very small nuance changes. But again, with the time constraints that we have, with the staff constraints, I mean, there's sometimes where I'll have all 35 girls in the weight room by myself. Like, and it's just something where I
Yep.
can't have completely individualized training. And we don't do that for any
Yeah.
team, like unfortunately. And even
Hmm.
though I think
Hmm.
we should try to an extent, we just can't. So using that kind of that catchphrase, that reverse engineering, is there anything that when you look at the bases, the utility girls that are doing both tumbling and basing, and then you look at the top slash tumblers that are doing just the tumbling stuff and just being lifted and thrown into the air, are there anything? So I guess I'll ask this two ways. Number one, reverse engineering, like key performance indicators. So things that you feel like in the weight room have the most carryover, if any at all, or even I'm going to eventually ask you about like, testing things. So like vertical jump, like is vertical jump a key performance indicator for a tumbler versus like where a base, it might be literally what's their max squat, right? Is there anything like that that you feel like you've seen or that you guys try to focus on? And then how does that distinguish maybe what those kind of three like branches of the sport
Yeah.
kind of maybe have some difference and some nuance in their programming?
Um, I mean, the base of my program is pretty similar for everybody. So majority of everybody's going to be doing the same exact thing unless they're like heavily modified for some reason. Everybody's going to be very similar. I think where I start to change it based on position or you know what their specialty is kind of in the accessories, or just maybe changing up positions or positioning in some exercises and things like that. But I don't write a whole entirely different program for bases versus tops. Like everyone's going to squat, everyone's going to hinge, everyone's going to push, pull, we're all going to do that. Um, I just kind of tweak a little bit of the accessories, like say we're doing a carry, maybe I'll change the position of a carry for the base to be like a here versus someone's doing a suitcase carry. I just, just those small changes that may target that position a little bit more. But I'm not writing something entirely different, truly. So we're all gonna Olympic lift. We're all gonna do a single leg. We're all gonna get our cap work in. Like maybe they bases don't need as much cap work as our tumblers, but we're still gonna do a little bit of it because I think they can benefit from that to be a nice developed athlete. Um, As far as maxing and like KPIs, where I'm still gonna do the same maxes with everybody. We're still gonna have like our squat max, our bench, and our like power clean max. That's usually what we do at the end of the fall. Those three, and I'm still gonna worry about the bases, sitting, get on the four stacks and doing a counter movement jump. Like maybe it's not telling me as much information as it is for a tumbler, but I think it's still beneficial information to have everybody do it truly. So, testing wise, they're doing similar things. They're doing exactly the same thing. Sometimes on our sprint testing, I'll push the tops to cover a little bit more distance than the bases, just because they probably don't need to sprint that far. Truly, we're not a sprinting sport, so we don't really, need to be running 100 yards. So just making little changes like that, but majority of what we do is very similar between position to position, truly.
Yeah, no, I
A
mean,
little
and
bit
again,
on like the power development a little bit. Sometimes for the tumblers, we'll do some more plyometrics and some different things there. But as far as like our lift, it's pretty similar.
yeah, and that was the plyometric thing was another question I was going to ask, but just to kind of finish on that, like you kind of said it at the beginning and then again there, like at the end of the day, like it's athletic development. Like if and this is something that I feel like, and maybe I haven't done a good enough job at Fairmont of I think our athletes understand it, but maybe I haven't done a good enough job with our coaches of like, look, if you walk into the weight room and you see, because we a lot of times we have like a mixed weight room. We'll have like, half the basketball team, or the basketball team will be on half the weight room. We'll have like two racks that are like two racks for soccer. We'll have a rack that's like the golf team. We'll have a rack that's like a baseball player making up a lift with an A&T
Yeah.
with an A&T girl thrown in the corner, like
Yeah,
doing her
just
doing
a
her own
nice
thing in the corner,
variety.
just to be able to make it work. But if you walk in, like you're going to see at some point during the week, everybody's going to be doing some sort of bilateral hinge and a unilateral hinge, right? Everybody's going to be doing some sort of bilateral and unilateral squat. Like, and there's only so you're either going to be goblet, front, back, or Zercher squatting. And we don't Zercher squat that many athletes, even though I love it. We don't do that with very many of our athletes. So it's one of those things where, like, I think from an outsider's perspective, especially in the world of like specialization and all that, everybody wants to do sport specific training. Like that's practice. Like practice is your sport specific training.
Yes, exactly.
So it's something where like, again, I think most people think that the A&T team like would be doing something completely different than the basketball team or the soccer team or even like the swim team or something. It's like it's like 90% the same. Like it's just
I mean, and that's my assumption that the majority of sports across the nation, across the world are doing similar exercises. There's a reason that these exercises have been around for so long. You don't need to do anything super fancy, in my opinion. It's really about like execution.
Yeah, and then exactly
well.
that's the thing is like now saying that like you said it's about execution. Like everybody front squats, and everybody does pull ups and everybody does power cleans. But my biggest thing with that is like yes, but we're just going to do it at the highest possible level that we can possibly do. Yeah. And I think that's where the difference is made. I think you go to like a high school and you see people doing power cleans and it looks like shit versus like I mean our A&T girls. Really, all of our athletes. This is probably the best our team our athletes have ever looked. But especially A&T this year in terms of power clean. Like even our freshmen, 3-4 weeks in, we got tears in our eyes because we're not being able to figure it out. And then like 3 months later, they're killing it. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. It's one of those things where there's an aspect of just that athletic development. That's really at the end of the day. That's what our entire job is just trying to make you a little bit more bulletproof. Which. We'll come back to the bulletproof part here in a second.
You just want them to be like good movers, right? Like I want you to be able to move well. Like through these 5 things, like I want you to be able to execute them really, really well, be super efficient in your movement patterns, and then we'll, keep increasing the load and you're just going to get better that way. Like there's no need to do anything fancy or something you see on Instagram or, like these movements work for a reason. So
yeah. Yeah, if you see LeBron James doing it on Instagram, we're probably not going to be doing that.
Yeah, like you can count that out of my
probably not in there. So just because like I am interested because like I said before, like we are limited on time. So one of the things that our head coach and I have talked about is really trying to like how do we maximize the like. We have 2 kind of 50-minute lifts, and then we do like a Friday session. How do we maximize basically that 2.5 hours that I get a week with the girls in the fall, and then really about an hour and a half during the season. So what does your team? And I know, and I don't want to overlook cross country, track and field. I'm going to probably come back to all that later on. I want to make sure we get to the A&T stuff here at the beginning. Because again, I love track and field. I definitely can't say I love cross country, but I love working with cross country kids.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
personally don't love it, but I
No,
do
yeah,
love
me
track.
personally, no, but they are a great group.
Yeah. But I do love track. Like I love speed development. I love the throwing sports. I love the jumping sports, all that. But anyway, um, for A&T, what does your, like, in the fall, your guys' schedule? So obviously, I assume you guys kind of follow the same guidelines as us, whereas like part of the fall, we have like our 9 hours where they can only practice a couple days a
Yeah.
week and lift, and then they go to the 20 hours where they're basically in season from there until May. And they're practicing more and that practice volume picks up. What does your fall training schedule look like? Like how often are the girls in the weight room? How long are they in there for? And then how do you, once the season starts, once that 20 hours a week starts, how does that workload basically decrease in the weight room? Or does it? I mean, I guess it has to some, maybe not.
To some extent. So in the fall, luckily Coach Fee gives me as much time as I need. Truly, she really, really believes in the weight room, and that helps me out because then I get as much time as I need. So in the fall, we train 3 days a week. So we'll usually go Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we get an hour and a half. So I have plenty of time. There are about 50 girls on the team, so the weight room is full. It does take a while to get through things. But we get 3 days a week, an hour and a half each session. And then when we come back in the spring, we'll start off 3 days a week. We kind of bump the time down a little bit to be about an hour just because they're about to be in season. It doesn't need to be as long. We want to make sure we're keeping the main thing. We had all of fall to develop. So we start 3 days a week, and then once they start competing, we'll bump it down to 2. So we're probably in that 3 day for about one phase, and then we bump it down to 2 days a week once they start competing for about an hour. And then it'll kind of decrease as we go throughout the season, and we'll cut some things out. We'll make it a little bit shorter, and probably end up about 45-minute sessions.
Yeah.
But during the fall, we use majority of our time. Like we don't. I'm not necessarily always ramping it up, but we do utilize our hour and a half pretty much every day.
How much of that? So just maybe pick a day where you're doing like. So when do you guys sprint? Like I remember even when I talked to Hobby, you guys are doing like 10-yard dashes, things like that. Like how does that work into your week? And then what would maybe just one day look like? What would that, like, how many complexes are you doing? Are you doing an Olympic lift complex? You're doing a bilateral squat complex, then an accessory complex? Like, what does that normally look like?
We do like 3 full body days. So we'll come in, we'll do a hang clean complex. We'll get our hang cleans done. That's generally our squat day, and then we'll throw some accessories in. Our first day is just heavy on the lifting side, and so we just get as much lifting in as we can on that first day. And then we do like some core challenges and stuff in there, so that kind of takes a little bit of time. And that's kind of our like heavy hitter day. And then we'll sprint on Wednesday. So we usually sprint at the beginning, we'll get our warm up in, we'll sprint, and then we'll head to the weight room. This is usually the day that we snatch, bench, and then throw some accessories in after that. And then our last day is a little bit plyo heavy at the beginning. So we'll kind of hit most of our plyos at the beginning of that lift, and then we'll go into our main lift. And then this is usually our like single leg day and overhead, and we do like some bicep, tricep, forearm, like accessory stuff, kind of like we call it arm farm at the end of that day, and get a little bit of that in as well.
Yeah.
But we do 3 full body days, just kind of Olympic on Monday, Wednesday, some sort of plyo on that day 3, and then squat Monday, bench Wednesday, single leg, overhead that day 3, and just kind of go from there and sprinkle those accessories in throughout those 3 days.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's essentially what I would think it would be. And that's very similar to what we do. Obviously, we're just, again, limited on the time. Like it'd be one of those things where what we've pretty much done in the past is usually that Monday is, I think that's we're either going to do our cleans or our jerks that day. And then sorry, not Monday. We go Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Tuesday would be like that cleaner jerks. And then Thursday would be the opposite of that. And then Friday we would go up and sprint. And then finish with like snatches and like some sort of trunk or like absols or hanging knee raises or toes to bar or something like that. Just like a quick little complex. So very, very similar. We're just ours, like I said, unfortunately, it's just kind of cut in half with the amount of time and volume that we're able to do. Speaking of volume, so you mentioned plyometrics, and this is something that I also, I feel like we do a solid job. One thing that I wonder sometimes is, especially once practice starts to ramp up, is like, the old saying of like, if the sport's giving them that, then like we don't need to do it anymore. And like basketball, we do a lot of change of direction work, a lot of agility work, even a lot more plyos. The first, like over the summer, and then I mean remotely over the summer. Our kids aren't here in the summer, but remotely over the summer, I'm giving them a lot more plyos, a lot more change of direction work, and then that first like month and a half in the fall, and then once they start practicing, they're getting so many changes. They're getting so many changes of direction in basketball that we stopped doing that kind of stuff. So with A&T, I kind of feel the same way, but I do also think that the plyometrics that we're doing in the weight room are so much lower impact than, especially for the tumblers, they get so much lower impact than their tumbling passes, that I really wonder if that's even, I guess what I'm getting at is I'm concerned about just the overall volume, the overall workload, and the overall tissue stress. But I really wonder if it ends up being stressful versus is it actually therapeutic? So like, is that something that you guys have had that conversation? Like your training staff, your coaching staff, like how do you guys kind of navigate that?
Challenging overall. That's a area for me that I'm still trying to like figure out as best as possible. Like how much do we need to do? Like, do I start heavy in plyos and then, decrease throughout the semester as they're increasing their tumbling and increasing what they're getting in practice? Or, do we simultaneously increase at the same time? Like, what's the appropriate way to do it? But we do still do plyos. I mean, pretty much year round. I take out some of our like low level plyos once we get like kind of about halfway through the season, I'd say, but I don't have a appropriate answer for like what's the right amount, because it's then it's like how much are they doing at practice? How many tumbling passes are they doing? Like, is it counted? Like, do I know exactly what the volume is that they're getting? It's like what's the appropriate answer? And that's something that I'm still doing a little bit of research in. Obviously, you have like your lower level limb like stress reactions and overuse injuries, and what's the best way to mitigate that? Like, am I doing enough to prepare them, or am I doing too much to now like they're getting these stress injuries because now we're just overloading them too much in the weight room? Like, what's the right answer? I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I do think that's one of the challenges like kind of that we face in this sport, to know like what the appropriate amount is, because there's just not a lot of research in this sport.
And I think it's something where like I said, and our coach and our athletes, I've had this conversation with our athletes and our training staff of like, there's times where, and again, the sport always has to take priority. So it's one of those where if you give me the option of like, do the girls come in and lift or do they come in and practice? Like, I'm always going to say go practice, because that is your sport. That's how you get better at it.
Absolutely.
But I guess the one thing that I kind of, from a strength coach perspective, like understanding periodization and high low days and all that kind of fluctuations of that. Like the one thing that I wonder sometimes is like, actually, let me ask you this first, and then I'll kind of follow up. So do you guys try to structure your practice to where your hard lifting days are hard practice days, or like to where you're stacking your high intensity days together, or do you try to alternate them, or is it not always possible to even coordinate that? Like, because that's kind of where my follow up question is going to be.
Possible to coordinate? I guess it just like kind of depends on like the point in the season. We do try to, stack our high days as much as possible. Like if it's going to be a really high day, I mean, the coaches know what the lift plan is. Like it stays pretty similar year to year. So they know pretty much what we're going to be doing on what days. And they'll know if it's going to be a little bit of a harder day in the weight room or not. But we try to stack as much as possible, but sometimes it's just not.
Yeah. Well, and so that was the reason what I was trying to eventually get at here is like, one of the things that we've stopped doing is we've stopped tumbling on the days that we lift, or we stopped, or AKA stop, however you want to look at it, or, we've stopped lifting on days that the girls are going to tumble. And like, if there's a day where like we have a snow day and school gets canceled and like their tumbling day gets pushed to a Tuesday, like we will not lift. Right. And again, to an extent, I'm okay with that. And obviously practice takes priority and the sport takes priority. So like regardless of whether I wasn't okay with it, I need to be okay with it.
Yeah.
But then I also wonder sometimes if it's actually better, because now the nervous system is already stimulated, the body's like more warmed up, ready to go. Because our girls are pretty much always going to practice after not like immediately after, but a couple hours later, enough time to go get food in their belly, and start to refuel a little bit. So like there's an aspect of like practice for most sports, practice always takes away has more of an influence on what you can do in the weight room versus the weight room taken away from practice, right? Because again, especially once we get through like the first month or two and like that initial like soreness of not training over the summer is out, like our girls really don't get that sore from the weight room. Like it's more from practice and just the wear and tear and the day-to-day grind. So I start to look at the weight room at that point in time. It's like, yeah, we're going to still get stronger, but man, it's more of like a therapeutic, like let's get in, let's like make sure that we're getting the body moving properly, almost like as a warm up to practice, like a very intense warm up to practice where you're still going to be squatting and cleaning and doing jerks and sprinting and deadlifting and stuff, but it's still getting the body ready to go. So I don't know. I think it's something that I think honestly, the answer is there's probably is no answer, but the answer also is you guys got 50 girls, we got 40 girls that probably all feel some way different about that. I mean, I've had girls in the teams come up to me and be like, "Hey, we're tumbling today. Can I go lighter?" And I'll be like, "That's fine," because it seems like that's what you feel like you already need to do. And then there's girls that would like almost prefer to tumble on the days that we lift and just have those 2 days, those 2 sessions stacked on top of each other. Because then it's almost like you don't ever get a day off. Like if you're tumbling Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you're lifting Tuesday, Thursday, then you never really you get Sunday off as your only day off. So I don't know if there's a great answer about that. It's something I'd like to add. I wanted to ask because
I do wish I had a better answer, and I know that is a little bit more like an area that I'm trying to be a little bit better at and understand a little bit better. But I mean, we lift after practice, so they go to practice and then they come to the weight room right after generally. But like if they go tumble in practice, they'll sometimes still have to come into the weight room and do their plyos in the weight room. Like I don't cut it out. Like they tumble at practice and they still come and have to lift. So we don't like take those days off like that. We'll kind of just still match them up. And I mean, sometimes they're sore, sometimes they feel like shit, but like there's work to be done, like as long as it's not in season and they're not, it's not taken away from their performance, then I mean, you got to break them down a little bit to build them up.
Right. No, I completely agree. And I think that's for sure what the fall's for. And it's something that every year that I've been at Fairmont, it seems like our spring numbers, like our like in season numbers just keep getting better and better. Like I don't think we do anything. And I say this as like a good thing. I don't think we do anything groundbreaking during the spring semester in season. I think we still stick to the basics and we just cut back some of the volume and we're just keeping the intensity high. But I mean, our girls' vertical jumps are going up in season, like as the season wears on. Like
not something that you're necessarily focusing on. It's just kind of like a byproduct of what's happening.
Exactly.
And that's how it is for us too.
Yeah, and I think
we're not doing anything really fancy.
Yeah, I think part of that is also just like because of the fall, but also because of just being in their sport. The sport's going to help make you more athletic already anyways. So like, it's one of those things where you come in the fall and your vertical jump might be, I mean, we use jump mats, so we don't have force plates. So these vertical jump numbers are probably going to sound a little bit inflated to what you guys are seeing. Cause you're getting, probably flight time or whatever, whatever it is, takeoff velocity, calculated jump heights. But we had probably half of our team jumping 20 plus inches this year, vertical jump. So it's one of those things where, and that's like PVC pipe on the back. Like that's no arm swing. I mean, that's a very impressive number. I forget what our team average was. I could probably pull the numbers up here somewhere, but that's like, they came in the fall at like 18 as a team average. And now we're leaving in the end of the spring at like 21, whatever it is average. And it's like, that's impressive. And like I said, I think that's just the work ethic and the sport and the type of athletes that we're getting and just the buy-in. So anyway, a little bit of a brag there, I guess. But speaking of sports, like the sports science aspect, like what are you guys using? Like what is there jump metrics that you're looking at from a performance standpoint? And I know I kind of asked the KPI thing earlier, but even more from like hey, we see that, and this may be something for a girl that's thinking about if that maybe listen to this podcast, hopefully maybe, that's thinking about going to college and being an A&T athlete. Like what would maybe something that you would say like, hey, you need to have a vertical jump probably around this. You need to have a squat probably around this. Like, is there anything that you see from the girls that are in the lineup the most, that jump metrics, sprint metrics, anything like that is like hey, like if you're not doing this, you're probably not going to be in the lineup?
My finger on something like that. We have such a wide variety of like athletes and a wide variety of like counter movement jump heights, a wide variety of sprint times. So it varies greatly. But I mean, I don't know if I can give you just like a number, because it's like, okay, you're base, if you're a base, you're jump height's probably not going to be that great, right? So it's
Right.
like, how much jumping are you doing in sport? Not a lot. So I think just power
Yeah.
in, 4 bases and 4 tumblers, like that's something that's really important. But there's no, we just vary so much. And there's 50 girls on the team. Like obviously you only have 28 in your lineup, and the ones that make the lineup are the ones that, adapt and adjust and work really, really hard. They're not chasing a number per se. We do use our like counter movement. Like I'm looking at their numbers. I'm looking at their jump height. We usually use impulse momentum and then some RSI mod, but we also post them so they get to see how they're doing week to week, and it's just kind of like a little bit of a motivating factor. Like internally, like they're like, oh well, I want to beat my number last week, and then just go get on the forceps and try really hard, and we kind of use it in that realm as well, not just as like to look at these numbers for performance, but for a little bit of motivation. And then same with our sprint numbers, like we're not a sprinting sport, we're not running in our sport per se, unless you're running into your tumbling pass, but we post them every week. They get to see how they did and they want to beat it that week. And so we kind of use it for a motivator,
Yeah.
to be honest. But I don't know if like there is one, like I've seen people with like not that great of a jump height on their force deck still make it into the starting lineup. I just think it's like, where can you fit in? Like, you're not, maybe not even fitting in to be like the tumbler. Maybe you're just really good at like putting somebody up on the top of the pyramid. Like you can make your way in through anything, truly.
Yeah.
Or being a little bit of a utility and being a little bit good at anything, like that'll get you in there easily too.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about like some of our like I would still say that for us there's definitely a trend of the girls that and we calculate power. We obviously just go off like the old school like Sayers equation where jump height factored in with body weight. And there's definitely a trend, and this is the case for all of our sports. There's definitely a trend where the people that have either the highest power or the highest relative power or both, they tend to be our better athletes, which also then tend to be the people that are in the lineups again, regardless of sport. And as we see those numbers go up, those athletes have more opportunities to compete. But again, at the end of the day, it's also still a skill thing. So like if you might jump 25 inches, but if you can't land your tumbling pass or you can't support somebody overhead, like it really doesn't matter. If you can't hit a baseball or make a free throw, you're probably still not going to be in the lineup.
You're not going to make it in the lineup.
So
that's just not how it works.
It's definitely one of those things that there are. I think there's probably I could probably think of a couple little trends, and like we have some numbers, like even weight room numbers, but there's definitely outliers, and there's probably a broader spectrum of where you need to be at than anything else. All right. So the injury aspect of this sport and just all sports in general. And I think part of it is, especially in the professional world and essentially Division I athletics is a professional world now to an extent. Like I think there's so much money in it. Especially, your big football and basketball sports that generate all the money. And if people get injured, it's the end of the world and all this. And, I think my thing is, and I've said this before, maybe even said it on a previous podcast, like there's an aspect of if you don't want to get injured, don't play sports. Like that's,
don't be good at your sport.
Yeah.
Right. Cause it's like the people who, aren't at the top of the charts, they're not jumping that high, they're not sprinting that fast, they're probably not going to get hurt as often because they just don't have the capability to, go to those lengths. So, I mean, you can't avoid it entirely, like truly.
And that's the thing is like, the people that get hurt, like on our football team, it's the guys that like the linebackers and the a running back. It's not the third string long snapper. Like that's like people that don't get hurt. Like on our our basketball teams, it's the starter. It's the people that are the best. Unfortunately sometimes the best athletes, the most physically gifted, the people that are redlining their body, and running on all cylinders at all times. They're the ones that unfortunately run the risk of being more injured. And it's something that our coach and our training staff and I have had a conversation about of like, especially for A&T, these girls we're asking them to do absolutely insane things with their body, especially the tumbling passes, like the amount of force. And that's the other thing, crazy thing is like, you think about, okay, we're going to do like a power clean in the weight room. Right. And you measure that on that force on the force plate. Like it's still high, but it's nothing compared to like the amount of force, the impact forces that are going on when you're doing, I mean, even just like a standing back tuck, like I would like to see what that number is compared to just a regular, power clean, a vertical, like a bodyweight power clean. Like, so we're asking them to do insane things. The sport itself is getting more insane. Like what your athletes are doing, what our athletes are doing, like it's different in this sport. The sport, I think I saw 2010. So this sport's 16 years old, officially 16 years old. Like what they're doing now, 16 years later versus what they were doing 16 years ago, it's not even the same sport.
Different,
It's
yeah.
like it's so different.
Videos and some of the old stuff they used to do. I'm like, you guys used to do that? Like, it's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
interesting how where it's gotten.
yeah. So it's one of those where like as performance goes up, unfortunately, the risk of injury goes up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with all that being said, because I think it's something that you have to say all that. With all that being said, the things that I probably lose sleep over the most are still injuries. Like as the strength coach, even though I know that I can't prevent any and all injuries, that's the thing that still keeps me up at night the most because of the
Still
fact
take it a
that
little personal.
yes, I take it personal. And I also not only do I take it personal for myself and who I am and like how competitive I am, but also
Yeah.
then I feel like you have the burden of that athlete's career also like on your conscience. So it's one of those things where like I get frustrated about it. So it's something I'm extremely open to talk about injuries, and I'll tell anybody and everybody like what we do, what injuries we've had. I don't care about all that, like because I just want to get better and try to do anything we can to if we can prevent one injury over the next 5 years, then it's worth
Great.
having
Yeah.
those conversations. Anyway, saying all that, what kind of common injuries have you guys seen? I'm sure very similar to what we've seen. And then what has been, as a staff, has been your guys' discussions on, maybe how certain factors played into it. Like, and again, I'm going to have some follow-ups on maybe what some of those factors may be, but what injuries have you guys seen since you've been there? How has that maybe influenced some of your programming, if it has? And then what kind of conversations have you had with the other support staff about those injuries?
We've seen a couple. We have luckily haven't had an incredible amount of injuries, thank goodness. Since I've been here, we have had a few girls come in with like ACLs that we've, still had to leave rehab from their, high school years, but no ACLs since I've been here. We have had a couple Achilles, so I think we're seeing those a little bit more, and then elbows, UCLs, dislocations. We've had a few of those. I'd say Achilles and elbows are probably my two biggest concerns as far as what we're facing on our team. The Achilles part, that's the kind of going back to the plyos and like what else could I do to make them well prepared to be able to go out there and hit this pass without tearing their Achilles. So that's somewhere that I'm still trying to get a little bit better at and make sure that I'm putting enough load on the Achilles to prepare them for that. But it's like, how much load do they need? Because how much load is being put into the Achilles while they're doing that tumbling pass? I don't know if there's an answer to that. So still working through that one, still trying to make sure that we're addressing that as much as possible. We did have an Achilles this year, and we had one last year. So, and it's kind of been towards the end of the semester or the end of the season. So like they were fine all through the fall, fine through majority of the spring, and then we towards like the end of the season is when we had both of them. So I'm just trying to look at trends and see what's going on there, and are we still loading enough in season? Is it at what time is like in the season is happening? And then elbows, I've started to do a little bit more like direct bicep, tricep, forearm work to hopefully protect the elbow joint a little bit more, and just get a little bit more meat and muscle around the elbows as much as possible. I think we've had maybe 3 elbows since I've been here. So we had a dislocation this year, nothing torn, I don't believe. So that's good. But we've had one last year and one the year before that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we actually have not had it. I mean, I think we had a girl that had like some elbow tendonitis, but we have not had elbows. We've definitely had a couple more ACLs, and then the Achilles, and so a couple of things that me and everybody in our department have had conversations about, and I don't know how much you guys have thought about this, how much you guys are trying to look into it. I know, and I do, there was, and I'm sure you're aware of them and you've read them, the 2 research papers that came out of Baylor, looking at bone mineral density with A&T athletes, and injury risk, and then also the vitamin D levels in A&T athletes. And again, it's like kind of crazy because like that's literally the only 2 research studies out there with this sport because it is such a new sport. But that's something where I think there's kind of I guess an open market in terms of getting more information out there
Absolutely.
to people like us, to our training staff, to our nutritionists, to our coaches, to our athletes, to the parents, everybody involved, administrative staff. So, but a couple of things that we've talked about. Number one, just sleep. Like, I don't think there's a single, I would bet that there's not a single athlete in our athletic program that at some point doesn't have about a week of like where they're just dragging ass because they just haven't slept. And whether
Yep.
that's the first week of class or finals or every week in between, I think you have to look at that as like one of the number one factors. And that's something that is everybody understands it. Everybody knows that you should sleep. I think everybody does. They should, but it's such a low hanging fruit that I don't even know. 90% of our athletes probably don't take advantage of. I really don't know. I would
Probably not.
is that something
And
that you
that's
guys
just
do?
something so easy that it's so
Yes.
attainable. Just
Are you
get
guys wearing
enough hours.
like Oura rings or whoop straps or anything like that for your
No,
athletes?
we don't have anything like that. No.
Okay. Because that's
No.
something that
But
I
I
was
mean, I guess
definitely,
it could be interesting to know. True.
yeah.
We've had some other sports on campus utilize them a little bit. And ultimately people just aren't sleeping enough.
Yeah.
Like really, they're
Yeah.
not.
And that's the thing, like from the compliance standpoint of those things, like, and I think WVU, I've talked to one of the guys up there, and that's what they had that issue too, where like they'd have football players wearing the Oura rings, and then the football player would take it off and have his girlfriend wear it while he went out and, did stuff that he shouldn't have been doing. So it's like,
Yeah.
you have to be able to trust the athletes are actually going to like understand the value of it. And again, it's one of those where it's like, I think most people know that sleep's important. I think it's just one of those things when you're 18 to 22 years old, it's hard to prioritize the
Priority.
thing that's
Yeah.
probably the most important thing. So sleep. And then the second thing obviously is nutrition. I mean, I
Nutrition.
would say that, if you assume that you should be getting about a gram per pound of body weight, I mean, so for an A&T girl, that's, 120, 115 plus pounds or grams of protein every day. Maybe 10% of our girls hit that throughout a
Yeah.
normal day, a normal week. Like,
Yeah.
is that something that, I mean, obviously you guys have sports nutrition, like, is it still something that you guys feel like you're like still climbing out of a hole, or do you feel like you guys have the nutrition piece kind of handled?
We do a little bit better with nutrition, truly. But our coaching staff really encourages the girls to eat. Like even on like away trips, like we're always telling them, get seconds, get more food, please eat, please eat, please eat. And I think some of them coming from like different backgrounds of gymnastics and that kind of thing where it's a little bit like taboo to, have all this muscle mass or gain a little bit of weight. Like we don't care. We want you
Yeah.
to eat. We don't like your body's gonna change a little bit. You're gonna look a little bit different, but you're gonna protect yourself. You're gonna play better. You're gonna feel better if you eat more food. So we really encourage that. We do. Our dietitian does come into our the weight room and give them little spiels and things to kind of help them out and about different areas of nutrition. Also talks about sleep, supplementation, that kind of stuff. But it's definitely encouraged for them to eat as much as possible, get their protein in. I can't say that everybody's doing it perfectly because I mean that's just not realistic. You have 50 people on the team. Like I'm sure not everybody's hitting their protein goals. But it's definitely a big stress and something that we really emphasize for sure.
Yeah. I think it's, especially at our level, like the Division II level, with not having a sport, like a sports nutritionist, like I think that's, man, it's so tough. It's so tough to like, especially being like a high school athlete and, mom and dad, at least if you're going through the drive-through or like mom and dad are making dinner
Yeah.
for you and like food's
Yeah.
kind of given to you. Whereas like now you're on your own and you're expected to go to the cafeteria 3 times a day and, or
Yeah.
buy groceries on your own and make
Yeah.
smart decisions. It's, it's almost a disservice in my opinion to the athletes, like that they don't have that, like that we just don't have more resources for them. Like it's
Yeah.
almost like it's not.
It is not fair if you don't really have it. We do have like not everybody has it on their meal plan, but we have like a athlete specific nutrition center that they go to and they make the food is all made just for athletes. So it's like healthy, but it makes sure they're getting their protein. There's still some fun stuff in there for them to eat. And then we also have like Red Card where it's like money on a card or an app or what I don't really know exactly how it works, but they can go out to different restaurants and use that money and get food that way. So I think that helps a little bit on making sure that they're eating and if they don't use that money, it doesn't just get like piled up. It's like it's gone for the day. So you need to go out and get your meal and use it and eat and fuel yourself. So that I think is very helpful. And I think if you have those kind of resources, I think they do use them. But I mean, you still have people that are like, oh, I don't like anything that's on this. I don't want to eat that today. Like you're still going to have that occasionally, but we do encourage fueling yourself as much as possible.
Yeah. And then another aspect, and I don't know if you guys have talked about this, is like I don't know how I feel about just the dead mat, the surface itself that they're competing on. And then the shoes that they're wearing for it. Like our girls all wear like the Nike Pegasus. Like I don't know if that's the best shoe. That shoe has no stability in my opinion. It's elevated heel. You're wobbly. Like is
Probably
that
not
something
the
that you guys have
best.
talked about? I mean, is that like is barefoot? Like we make all of our athletes train barefoot in the weight room.
Mhm.
Is that something that you guys have talked about? Is there any debate on shoes, especially for like the Achilles aspect of it, of like
Yeah,
what's going
that's
on?
something that we were talking about this year, just because we were having, those lower limb, stress reactions, and then we had our Achilles and things. We were like, well, what changed? What's different? It's got to be the shoes. I mean, there's probably a million other things that go into it, but that's something that we were really looking into. I know, like, the girls get a couple different options of shoes. So we don't make them all wear the same shoe. We kind of give them different options of, like, depending on like your position, you can wear this Metcon. Maybe if you're a base, I don't encourage you to tumble in the Metcons, but we give them a little bit of an option in that regard. And then even then, sometimes throughout the season, they'll be wearing the shoe and it's not working for them, and then we'll have to change it out and get them a different shoe to see if that works for them. They do I don't know what the shoe is called, the acro shoe. Do you know what it's called?
I,
That
I know
Nike came
there's
out with?
I know there's like one that like competitive cheer uses, and I think that's been brought up. I don't know if that's the same thing or not.
Yeah, well, I think Nike came out with like a acro
Oh,
specific
really?
shoe. Yeah, and we use them a little bit this year. I don't know if they're still like one size fits all, like it works for everybody.
Hmm.
Some people like them, some people don't like them. I think it kind of varies athlete to athlete. But we have talked a bit about the shoes. And as far as dead mat, it's different because they don't come from that, right? They come from like the spring. It's entirely different. So our staff does a really, really good job of progressing them into the dead mat and just making sure that we're not just going, balls to the wall at first. Like they're progressing them into it, because it is a different surface and it does make a big difference in their tumbling and the stress. So we try to progress that
Right.
nice and steady and as
Yeah.
much as possible.
Yeah, I didn't know about the shoes. I put that in my notes. I'll have to look that up and
Yeah, I
talk.
can't remember what it's called, but it's a newer shoe. So we did have some ladies that like trialed them, I think last year. And then this year, all of them had access to it if they wanted it. It has like a little bit of like a grippy on the side too for like, holding the foot.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Um, and then the other thing that obviously I'm not an expert in, but I think it's got to be considered is menstrual cycle, and then also the fact that these athletes grew up doing gymnastics, and there's a point in time post puberty where tendons and ligaments do start to stiffen up.
yep.
And if you look at elite level gymnasts, like they're kind of peaking at like that 16, 17, 18 years
Yep.
old. So I think that's an aspect of just like you mentioned, like the aspect that that the human body is changing in that 18 to
Mhm.
22-year-old, timeline.
Yeah.
And then menstrual cycle. Like I think that would be, I guess it's kind of an invasive thing to look at, but it's one of those things where like I feel like if you probably looked at across women's sports, and I know there's some studies out there, I've tried to look at some of them, but like when injuries are occurring, like what phase in the menstrual cycle are these injuries occurring? Like I would almost assume that there's a pretty strong correlation. And again,
Yeah.
at some point, as we said, you still have to train, you still have to compete, you still have to lift.
Yeah,
Like,
like you can't necessarily use it as like an excuse all the
yeah,
time, or like, but I've seen some people, give you like a couple different like lift options or something. It's like if you're at this point in your cycle, you're gonna do this lift. If you're at this point in your cycle, you're
right.
gonna do that lift. So it's like obviously there's still work to be done, but like, can we adjust it to make it more beneficial for these athletes? Probably.
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I
and I
don't.
guess my thing was more like, because again, I think the lifting thing's true and all that, but I think my biggest thing was maybe just, again, go back to periodization, just fluctuating practice and training
Yeah.
volumes. Like the
Mhm.
lift maybe not have to change. Like you might not, everybody's still going to
It could be
squat,
the same exact.
it could be the
Yeah,
exact same lift. It's just
just
maybe the
different
volumes
volume.
and
Yeah.
maybe the practice volumes change. And again, I'm like I said, I'm definitely not an expert, and I'm like can't be speaking on it like I am, but there's something that I think you have to take that into account,
Yeah.
because it's definitely a factor. And then again, going to the athlete age aspect, where these girls spent, most of these girls that did gymnastics probably started when they were 5, 6, 8, 10
Yeah.
years old, something like that. So they've been
Mhm.
doing gymnastics for you know
Forever.
10, 12 years of their life
Yeah.
on a spring floor, and then now they're doing
And then
dead
going
mat,
to a
and
dead mat. Yeah.
their tendons and ligaments are all getting stiffer, and they're probably sitting more than they've ever sat. They're in class. They're sleeping maybe less than they've ever slept. They're eating worse than they've ever eaten. Like it's almost one of
A
those things
lot
where
of
it's like,
lifestyle changes, like, and then the changes to the flooring. It's just a lot
yes,
happening at one time,
yes,
for sure.
it's a lot of potential negative factors
Yes,
while performance is also trying to be improved.
at
Like
your
it's,
all-time highest. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's definitely one of those things where, like I said, I lose sleep over injuries. I get frustrated about them. But at the end of the day, it's unfortunately just part of it. It comes with our job. It comes with
Yeah.
being a student athlete. It comes with being a sport coach, being a college athletic trainer. Like we're all going to have to just deal with it. And, another thing that I was going to ask you about that is, so like if an athlete, and we do a pretty good job of this, I think, for the most part. But if an athlete is banged up, let's say they sprain their ankle, let's say they, um, you know, are dealing with tendonitis, like patellar tendonitis, Achilles tendonitis. How are you working around that? Obviously, is that something that you're still handling, everything but maybe that joint, and then that joint is handled by the training staff? How do you personally, like with being the strength coach, handle working around injuries? What still kind of is in your like area of coverage versus things that are kind of outside your scope of practice?
So I work really closely with our athletic trainer. She does a really awesome job of, keeping me in the loop and giving me updates as often as possible. If they can still do something in the weight room, they will do something in the weight room. So we don't take them out completely unless, their whole body's banged up and they literally can't do anything, or if like obviously they're sick or something, they can't be there. Um, if it's maybe something where they could still get their like lift in with their feet on the floor, and maybe they're just not able to extend, maybe they're not able to do any impact, we'll just make those adjustments, but they're still going to go in there and use that joint if possible. Um, if they can't use that joint for whatever reason, if it's a little bit more of a serious injury and they can't use it, then we're adjusting around it. We're doing everything else that we can. So they'll come in the weight room regardless and get as much work in as possible. Maybe they can't do lower body, but you're still going to get in there. You're going to do upper body. You're going to do core. You're going to do whatever you can do in there. You're not just going to be out completely, because that's not going to help you get any better, truly. Like just,
No.
yes, time off is great, but it's like there's still so many other things that you can train at the same time. So she does a really good job of just not taking people out completely. She, keeps them in there and just gives me some guidelines onto what they're able to do. And we collaborate, and she knows what the lifts are going to look like. And we kind of chat about maybe could they do this? Could they not do that? And we make those adjustments. And sometimes those are down on the fly. Obviously, sometimes you can't, things happen quickly. Things happen at practice right before they're about to come into lift, but we communicate really regularly to make those adjustments.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that's, like I said, we do a pretty good job, just overall, a fair amount of working around injuries. It's something that, again, I take a lot of pride in that. I take a lot of pride in,
Yeah.
like you said, you sprained your ankle. We still got your core and three other appendages that we can train.
Exactly.
Just kind of, how much more, I mean, do you have a time constraint,
I-
like good for another 15 or
good.
20 minutes here?
Yeah,
Just
sure.
to kind of wrap up the support staff aspect of it. We kind of talked a little bit about sports nutrition. We talked about athletic training. We talked about the sport coaches, which I think is, all factored into that, and volumes and practice plans and all that. I think another area that, and we do have a sports psych, which is really big for us at Fairmont. How much do you think, like, just in general, you, again, going back to even your wrestling, wrestling in college, and then now working with athletes, female athletes specifically, with A&T, like how much is sports psych probably still underutilized? And it just, at least from a strength coach perspective, like how much do you feel like maybe because again, I think it's something that I don't think most athletes understand how powerful this is, more so in a negative way. Right.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the
Yeah.
injuries. Like if I get injured, like I'm getting old, so I'm always banged up. But if I'm injured, the last thing I want to do is not train. Like I want to go train, because that's like the thing that
Then
gives me
you're just gonna get even more in
yes,
a
and like
lull, and it's
I'm
just
I'm gonna sit around and I'm gonna feel sorry for myself, and I'm gonna think about how
Exactly.
bad it sucks to have like I have a messed up neck from wrestling and jujitsu and stuff. So my neck's messed up. So it's like when my neck's messed up, like I'm gonna go in and do everything that I can that doesn't require me to move my neck, right? So
Yeah.
how much do you think, from like a sports psych standpoint, is there still room to be gained? Whether it's things that we can teach our athletes, or just in general, like mental performance, like how much is that a factor?
I think we could probably be a little bit more like proactive in teaching them ways to deal with these things before they happen. Cause like we have a great sports psych department here as well. Like anytime something happens with the athlete, they know and they check in with them. So it's like a mandatory check-in. It's not like these kids are just flying under the radar, like they get injured, they're not talking to anybody. Like somebody will go in and check in with them. If they have a surgery, they'll go in and they'll talk to the sports psych. They're being counseled in that way. But I think we can probably do, I think everywhere, not just here, we could probably do a little bit better job of talking to them a little bit more about these things before they're a problem, right? Like what kind of tools are we giving them to just be good performers, not even necessarily about injuries, but even just about like how powerful your brain is, like in a positive and a negative realm. I think the education piece always could be a little bit more, truly. But as far as like when something's happening, we do a really good job of staying on top of that. And then you also have to think about the piece that it's like there's things happening up there that don't involve sport at all, right? Like they're humans, they're people, and you kind of have to address that aspect as well, because maybe there's something else happening in their life that they need to chat about that's now affecting their sport because they're just so overwhelmed with whatever else is happening. So I mean, I don't think you can really get enough of that. There's a little bit of stigma still, like everywhere, where people are like, I don't need to talk to a therapist. I don't need to do this or that. But I think it's incredibly beneficial.
Yeah. Well, and something that I've talked to some of our athletes about is like, and even our coaches, because like when we first started having like sports psych, we used to have like students from WVU come down, and they still help out a little bit. And now that we have somebody actually on campus, like I remember some of our coaches, two of them actually aren't at Fairmont anymore, but they were kind of that old school mentality of like, I don't want my player. They were like, they're just going to go there and complain. Like that's what they thought they were going to do, which there's probably some truth to that to an extent.
I
But
mean, yeah.
I think it's not even about, okay, the injury happens, this athlete's dealing with like an actual like mental health issue. I think it's more just even from just like, I think you can almost like distinguish between mental performance and mental health. And again, it's one of those where like as a strength coach, like I think we have a huge role in the mental performance side of things, because we know, like, we talk about our athletes, like everybody's doing power cleans, but are they doing them at the level that our athletes are doing it, that your athletes are doing it at?
Yeah.
Like, because that creates already a mental edge going into whether it's an A&T meet, whether it's a basketball game, whether it's a football game. Hey, we've just done stuff better than the people that we're going to line up against. So I think it's
We'll
even from
lay
that of just,
out in the mat.
yeah, of just leveraging the fact that like you can go into a game with more confidence, with, more like trust in like what you're capable of, because you've had somebody help lead you down that path. And again, sometimes it does still fall on us as strength coaches, but I think just in general, like I think sport coaches, I think getting more sports psych involved. I don't think it always
Yeah.
has to be like, oh, that person's going to sports psych because they're dealing with, an issue. I think it'd be like,
It
no, like
doesn't have to be negative
yeah,
per se. Like it
yeah,
really doesn't. And I do think Coach V does it, like she's kind of like really into that kind of stuff. So she does a really good job of prepping them mentally for like competition, for what the sport is going to be like, for what life is like being an acro athlete. So she does a pretty good job there. But I just think, in general, everybody could just be a little bit more proactive in it,
yeah,
and
for
really
sure.
understand how much that could affect you and affect your day-to-day life, affect your performance, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then something else that I say all the time to our athletes, especially like our football guys, because they talk about, well, they want to be tough, and mentally tough and physically tough on Saturdays. And it's like, yeah, but are you sleeping throughout the week? Because if you're not, if you go into that game sleep deprived, you're already going to be more mentally weak than what you would if you would, like, and I give them the example. You got two boxers or two fighters, two wrestlers, two football players, two LeBron James, whatever. LeBron James A got 9 hours of sleep. LeBron James B got 6 hours of sleep. LeBron James A is going to kick LeBron James B ass all the time because he's
For
just better
sure.
rested and
For
better
sure.
recovered. So I think that's, kind of to bring it all like full circle. Like it's all trying to leverage performance, whether it's nutrition, sleep, whether it's the sports psych, like the mental performance side of it, working around injuries, like all of that stuff. I think it's something that is probably just underutilized and under
Yeah.
leveraged at every
Yeah.
level.
I
Um,
agree.
so what year of coaching is this for you? Year 7, if I do my math right, something like that. You can count
Well,
internship as well.
county internship. Yeah, 7.
7. So,
Yep.
I don't know when I would draw the line of like what I would consider, like I would still consider myself a young coach. I'm year 12, but what would be a piece of advice that you would give, like as a, up and coming young coach? I guess I would call you that. What would be like the biggest piece of advice that you would give someone that's starting that internship at SMU, starting their master's degree at West Florida? Like, what would you give somebody that was in your shoes 5 years ago? What advice would you give them now?
That's tough. Be adaptable. I think being able to adapt and adjust to different people, different programs goes a long way. If you're super rigid and like your thought process or what you want to do, looks like you may not mesh well with people. So you have to be able to adjust. You have to be able to adapt on the fly. Things change. Make those quick adjustments and don't let it skip a beat. Really, like if you don't let it stress you out, it's gonna happen. Just keep going and be consistent. I think if you show up every day and people know what they're going to get from you, that goes a long way. If you show up one day you're happy, one day you're upset, like people aren't going to know what they're going to get from you. They're probably not going to enjoy being around you. I want my athletes to like come into the weight room and enjoy being in the weight room. Truly. Like, yes, we're going to work hard, but I want you to also have a good time in here. So making it fun, making it enjoyable. I think working with multiple sports and multiple like different programs makes you a better coach. So I would say don't just funnel yourself into one sport, because I think then you get a little stuck. Like say you solely work with basketball. I don't think that's going to make you necessarily a better coach if you only work with basketball. Go see what other teams are doing. Go see what other sports are doing. You get a little bit of a broader view, but it'll help you just make those changes and make decisions for that sport a little bit more. You get to work with different coaching staffs and see how different people work and different people navigate. And I think that helps you just be a little bit more well-rounded. And I think you shouldn't, yeah, there's a time to like have a niche and go into that sport. But if you're a young coach, like get as much experience as you can with anybody that you can, in my opinion. Um, what else? I could probably give you more advice if you need it.
I mean, I completely agree on all of that. And I think the one thing that you said that also I'm a huge believer in is making the weight room an enjoyable place. Like, if we want to get the most effort out of our athletes, like they can't be scared to come to the weight room. They can't.
No.
And again, it doesn't mean that maybe a freshman walking first time ever is not going to be scared, but I'm talking about like by the time that they're, a couple months into it, like they look forward to coming into the weight room. If I can get 90% of our athletes to look forward to coming in the weight room at some point during their career, like that to me is probably more important than, if we win, conference championships or something like that, because it means that we've taught them to, value physical development, right? And mental development to an extent at that point, because of how much I feel like your physical being supports your mental well-being.
Yeah. I mean, you're in college for 4 years, right? Like you're doing this for 4 years, but you have a whole lifetime ahead of you. So it's like, what can they take from the weight room that's going to apply to their life after sport? Like you want them to enjoy it enough to where they're able to still go exercise, still go train, still go lift whenever they're out into the real world. You want to give them a good, well-rounded college experience, in my opinion. So I want them to come in and have a good time, but I also want them to be able to take something from that and apply it to the real world, because they're not going to be in this sport forever.
Yeah, no, I
Really.
think 100%. So quick question here on track and field. Similar to what I asked about A&T, like what does your kind of, now do you program directly for, no, Coach Ruff does track and field, you do cross country, correct?
Yeah,
So
we're just track, I do distance.
So what does that look like distance wise in terms of, I mean, obviously you're still sticking to kind of those fundamental human movements.
Yep.
How much are you kind of like taking into account like training age? Again, probably another group of people that maybe don't always appreciate the weight room, at least on the front end, maybe hopefully more on the back end. Like what kind of obstacles, hurdles, I guess you could say, what kind of hurdles have you faced with track, like getting those cross country or those distance track athletes to get buy-in in the weight room?
Well, track's kind of its own beast, right? Like they kind of operate at a different level. It's kind of entirely different from our acro program. So it's a different sport. It's just a different way that they operate. But we're still going to do the same things. We're still going to, do those same movement patterns. That's not going to change. Obviously, like our volume and load is going to change a little bit based on just the sport that they do. I don't necessarily work off of percentages like I do for acro. I work more off of a RPE scale, which I feel works better for them, just because everybody has a little bit of different mileage. Everybody's doing something a little bit different. And if you're, especially where we have people, not everybody's competing at the same meets at the same time, so there's just like a kind of a little bit more variance in like competition for them. So I like to work off the RPE just to make it a little bit more so they can adjust it for them based on how they're feeling. But I mean, we're going to do the same things. We're not going to switch it up entirely. Like we do still see like those overuse injuries like we do with acro and the lower leg and stuff like that. So that's still something that I'm trying to navigate and try to mitigate as much as possible. I mean, obviously you can't take it away completely when you're running, 80 miles a week, but we do as much as we can. But we don't do anything fancy. I just want them to be good movers. I want them to come in and learn how to lift. And I'm not worried about loading. Like I worry a little bit more about load with acro just because of, the demands of the sport. But I just want them to feel good and to be able to move well. And then we'll kind of create a good base and go from there. They're freshmen that come in are, it's a little nerve-wracking. Most of them have never lifted before. Like 99%, I say, would probably never have. And I like to see when they like come in for a little while and then they enjoy the weight room and they have a good time being there. So nothing fancy. Really, I mean, nothing fancy. Just execute things well and learn how to move well and enjoy yourself in the weight room.
I think that's great. And same with us. Our cross country kids they're usually very, very timid. Like sometimes you don't even hear a word out of them for like the first month that they're there. They kind of walk into the weight room real quiet and real timid, look around, make sure that the music's not too loud and all that. But then it's like, once you get them out of their shell, I mean, I probably had more conversations with our men's cross country team this fall where I was like laughing like hysterically.
They're so funny.
Than I have in the last 5 years. Like they were so fun. We had some guys on the team that were just so funny and so fun to be around this year. So it's really fun to like get to know them. And I don't usually get to work with them as much. Usually I'm working with another team and one of my assistants is working with cross country, but there was a day this year where I spent a little bit more time with them and they're a lot of fun and definitely. And I tell them this every semester and I've told the coaches and I tell the cross country athletes, everybody thinks like football, basketball, baseball, A&T, like that they have the most benefit from the weight room. And I do think that's true to an extent, but I think it's because cross country and them have never been in the weight room that they actually are going to see the most like immediate impact on their performance. So it's one of those things where like most football players come in, they can already, squat 400 pounds, bench press 225, like power clean 225. Like that's not like, we had 50 pounds of their numbers.
For that.
It's going to be a minimal enhancement to their performance. But we had 50 pounds to a cross country runner's back squat over the next 2 years. Like that's going to be a potential game changer for them. So I think it's something else to look at, like from a unique standpoint of like a very low dosage goes a long way for those athletes, for those endurance athletes specifically. All right. I've just kind of started doing some of these rapid fire questions. So some of these are going to be new. So I'm kind of excited. And I didn't put these on the thing that I sent out. So these will be interesting to see how they go. So, and they're rapid fire, but as you can tell, I'm not rapid fire. I like to talk. So you can keep it as short or as long as what you want to answer. All right.
Okay.
Currently favorite exercise / lift or like training modality?
For myself or for my athletes?
For yourself.
I'm really into the push press right now.
Okay.
I didn't do a lot of like overhead previously, and I just wasn't really into it, but I'm digging it right now. I feel like my shoulders are starting to look real nice.
Push press, nice. I know, I like push press, a great exercise. All right, what about like go to like workout music? And you can go genre, you can go artist, you can go song, like as specific or as broad as you want.
I'm gonna go with 2000s, like R&B, hip hop. That's my go-to.
2000s, okay. All right, that's so. Wait, where'd you say you're from? You're from Texas?
I'm from California.
You're from California. Okay. All right. I was trying to think.
Yeah, that was like my growing up, those are the things I listened to. So I like to throw it back to the 2000s.
Yeah, no, I get that. 2000s was a good era for music in general. I feel like after like I always tell our guys, like when I was in high school, that was like when like Lil Wayne, like the Carter 3, Carter 4 came out. And I feel like ever since then, rap has gotten way worse.
It's gone
So
downhill. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta bring back the old
yeah,
stuff. It's better. It's
yeah, I
better.
agree.
And the
I agree.
kids, these kids don't know they need to learn about it.
Yeah,
You
no, I
gotta put it
agree.
on
I
for them.
agree. I agree. All right. So this one, I've never asked this question before. And I think I was driving in my car and I thought about this as an
Thought
interview
about it?
question. So I'll see how this goes. All right. So if you as a string coach could get an NIL deal with a company or a product, somebody to sponsor you and give you NIL, and whether that's they actually give you cash, probably wouldn't be as fun of an answer, or they give you like they supply you with something. What would that company
Right.
be and what would that product be and why?
I would probably be supplied with some sort of food. Girls gotta eat, you know?
All right. I
Um,
got you.
what would it be though? That's tough. That's a tough question. I mean, I guess we do have resources for food here. Like I could like hit up the nutrition station if I need to, but like coming home to like a home cooked meal for me, like a private chef, that's what I would want.
Yeah, that makes
A
sense.
chef.
Yeah, no, that I think the private chef would
A
be a
pri like, you
a
know,
game changer. Yeah,
right? You don't
yeah,
have to worry about like getting up earlier to make breakfast. Someone already got breakfast for you. Like, or even if it wasn't like a private chef, even if they just like dropped off a meal, like some sort of meal prep kind of stuff. But
yeah,
I want it a little bit fresher.
yeah. Like you need an NIL with like Bobby Flay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that'd
That's
be
what, yeah,
legit. No, that'd be
that's what I'm
legit.
talking about.
No, that's a good. I like that question, and I think that's a great answer.
So that was a
First
good
time doing
question.
it.
That's kind of a tough one.
All right. What's been your proudest moment or moments as a coach so far, as a string coach?
Well, this was actually this year was the first time I got to see a freshman class all the way through to their senior
Mm,
year. So this year has been really special for me just because I don't know, a lot of times people bounce around a lot. You go into a program and you're there for 2 years, then you leave and you go somewhere else and you don't really get to see anything through. So I think just being able to see their development from freshman all the way through to their senior year was awesome. Like
yeah,
it was great. And yeah, we win national championships, we have all these rings and stuff like, but just being able to see them develop as individuals has been really, really rewarding for sure.
yeah. No,
I like
that's
that.
it's really good that you say that because I felt the same way last year. Like 2025 was my first group of kids that came in as a freshman. I got hired in the spring, so they came in that fall,
Same.
and
Yeah.
they graduated. And and again for me, it's it's not just the 10 to 12 A&T girls that we had, but it's it's the football guys and the basketball
Yeah.
players and like these kids that have been
Yeah.
around. I've been around for basically 4 years now. So it's yeah, I personally would probably agree with you on that too. Like we've definitely
Mhm.
had Fairmont has won some championships. We've had some really good teams, really good athletes. But that for sure has probably been. I would agree with you because again, when I wrote that question, I'm thinking of it as like you're at an 11-time national championship school.
That's not the answer you thought you were
Like,
gonna get.
but I kind of figured that wasn't necessarily going to be the answer. But I was also like, I'm interested to see what the answer would be. All right, what about like and this kind of goes back to like the young strength coach thing. Is there any books or podcasts that you strength conditioning books and podcasts that or resources like maybe it's people that you just like to listen to or follow that you would recommend?
I'm not really a big podcast girl. I wish I was. I wish I could get into
You're not supposed to say that on a podcast.
I know. I know. I'm sorry. I did watch some of yours though. Don't you worry.
Okay.
I brushed up on your podcast.
Sweet.
Um, what books I thought. Have you ever read The System?
Um, I
Albert
think
Mill.
yes,
It can
Alvin Mayo.
get
Yes, yes,
real complicated. It can get like
yes,
super. You can get really deep into it if you need to. I thought that was. I think that's a good one. It's
yes.
got a lot of information in there, but and it's kind of written for football. But if you take it and you can adjust it to your sport you're working with, I think that's a good one. Um, we've been had like the subscription to Sportsmith this last year, and I think they put out a bunch of good information. And you could go in there, type in anything, and you'll see a bunch of articles pop up. And they're not like super long reads or anything, so I think that's a way to get some quick information. And then it also introduces you to different coaches and things on there because they usually do articles with like a bunch of different people. There's like 6 people in the article, and then you could take pieces that you like and then go research this person and get a little bit more out of it. Um, yeah, those are my two for you.
Yeah. I did read the system. It's been a long time ago. Actually, I wrote that down because I need to go back and revisit that and see if I
Oh,
even
yeah,
have
retouch it. Yeah,
that
it's
somewhere in my books.
yeah, I might have a online version of it somewhere for you.
Yeah. Well, I think I have it like in a Dropbox or something from
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
that
that's how I also have
I've
it.
worked at in the past. What about, is there anybody, so I mentioned, uh, Dr. Pat Ivy. Is there anybody else that you feel like you look up to as a strength coach, or just would be an interesting guest, some, like maybe somebody that you're friends with, like in the strength conditioning world, that you also feel like if I reach out to them, they would want to be a guest, they'd be a good guest, and they'd actually want to be a guest on a podcast that you're not going to listen to?
No, don't do that. You never know. Maybe now I'm a podcast girl. I mean, like my mentor, obviously, cause like I look up to him so much. Like he brought me into this field, so I'm like incredibly grateful for him. I think he is incredibly smart and just a really awesome dude, and not just in like the strength and conditioning realm, just in life in general. Could give you so many tips and tricks and pointers and things. He's awesome. I have a good group of my GA buddies, kind of that I've grown up with. Obviously, you've heard of Mallory Henderlong. She's big on the podcast and things nowadays. I think she'd be an awesome guest. I have a friend at
She's
TCU.
at Auburn.
She's at Auburn. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
working soccer.
Okay. Yeah.
She's got some good stuff going on. She's got a pretty good social media presence too, so you can go get some good info off of her page.
Yep.
My friend CJ White at Nebraska, he works in football. I think he could be a good guest for you. Logan Uitaki, he's at TCU. He works with beach volleyball and track over there. Those are some of my good peeps that I've
I gotcha.
kind of
What did you say
come up
Logan
with.
was? What did you say Logan was?
He's at TCU.
TCU. Um, so you mentioned like you were doing 3 sports. You said wrestling was like your sport in the winter. What did you play in the fall and spring?
I played volleyball in the fall and softball in the spring.
Volleyball and softball. Okay. No, I think that's a good list. I'll definitely, again, it's one of those things where it's like a weird thing to just randomly reach out to somebody. Like I like that I at least maybe have some sort of connection to them. But yeah, I personally think it's something that in this field, we, for some reason, are afraid to just randomly reach out to people too, though. So it's like, I'm kind of my own worst like critic in that, but it's like, what's the worst I could say? No, or just ignore your email. Like, I don't care. It's
okay,
like,
whatever.
it is. Yeah, it is
At
what
least
it
you
is.
tried.
But the thing about it is the strength conditioning world is really pretty small when you really think about it.
It's so much smaller than people think it is.
Yeah,
and
when you really
everybody knows somebody that you know. Maybe you don't know them directly, but you have a tie in there somehow, I promise you, because it's really not a big field. And there's just like only a certain amount of schools, right? In the country.
Right.
You're not seeing new colleges and things pop up.
Right. Well,
year to year. So
just think of A&T. Like, I mean, obviously there's probably some Division 3, Division 2 schools that don't have strength coaches, but I think there's 50 couple division or 50 total A&T programs out there now, and I would say probably 25 to 30 of them have a strength coach. So just right there, like that's not that many people that we are kind of in the same realm as them. So
yeah, it's a small world. It is.
Their programs just aren't as good as ours. So it is what it is.
Sorry.
But so I appreciate your time. This was awesome.
Course.
I'm gonna work on getting it maybe even up today or tomorrow at the latest. So
okay, cool.
But I appreciate your time, and it was a great conversation, and I'm glad we were able to connect, and tell Javi I said hi.
Okay, I will. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one. Thank you, Courtney.
You too. Thank you.